All right, we're in the midst of a AI market meltdown, or AI or tech market meltdown, or maybe more specifically, a semiconductor market meltdown. You can see it when you look at the KOSPI chart. This is the South Korean KOSPI chart. That's the red candle for today. It was actually down 11%. Biggest daily drop that they've had, or the third biggest daily drop that they've ever had. And that brings the top to bottom of the KOSPI to 35.5%. It's not the only a market that is melting down. If you look at the components of the KOSPI, remember that in South Korea, Samsung and SK hynix are the two big monsters inside the index, which make up the majority of the index. I think 66% the index. Samsung was down 13.4%. SK hynix is now down about 48%. And guess what? They report earnings today, tomorrow. When I say today, tomorrow, the reason why I say today, tomorrow is because today, it's if you're in the US, it'll be today, and if you're anywhere else in the world, it'll be your tomorrow time. SK hynix actually drop earnings. At the same time, it's not even confined to Asia. So you look at Nvidia. Nvidia yesterday was down quite a bit, also down again today. So yesterday, Nvidia down 6.3%. I'll show you why that's happening. And then AMD also down, also in the semiconductor space, in the memory space, in the chip space, also down. So we're in the midst of this market meltdown. A lot of people are saying that the AI trade is over. I'm going to show you exactly what's happening. And the good news is that yes, the AI trade is melting down. Yes, it is getting scary. But if you look at crypto is actually doing pretty well, right? Like if you look at Bitcoin, look, we're not flying. We're not bucking the trend. We are kind of bucking the trend, but we're at 63,000. If you look at Ethereum at 1,900, 1,878. If you look at how Bitcoin has performed relative to all the others, you can pretty much see here exactly how it's performed. Bitcoin's done pretty well. ETH has been quite a good performer. Bitcoin's been a good performer, and the rest have basically come down. So crypto is actually holding strong in the midst of a market collapse. And then we also have the FOMC, and I want to talk a little bit about the FOMC because the FOMC is quite big. We are going into @KevInWash second FOMC, and the majority of people basically believe that KevInWash is not going to increase rates or reduce rates for that matter in this FOMC. But now there's a growing cohort of very credible people. Included in the growing cohort of very credible people is the Fed whisperer. His name is 𝗙𝗘𝗧𝗏. Let me just log out here. See, Twitter is rate limiting me. It is the most frustrating thing in the world when they start rate limiting you. So you can see 𝗙𝗘𝗧𝗏's tweet here, where he says basically he's not sure. He says on the Fed July meeting, let me read this to you. It says, on the Fed July meeting, I can make a good case for either rates raising or not, keeping them kind of stuck. So we've gone from he's definitely not going to raise rates to a lot of people actually saying that he's going to raise rates. 𝗙𝗘𝗧𝗏 says he can make the case for either. He says cooler inflation took the urgency out of July before the Iran war reignited. But now the problem is that the Iran war is kind of back, even though there's like a ceasefire again. But on top of all of that, we have another problem. And that problem is that Wash has been pretty steadfast on the fact that he wants to bring inflation down. Inflation has actually come down. The last CPI and CPI readings were both lower than expected, right? So that's the last two readings. The problem is that he may want to make a point, which is what he kept harping on in the last meeting. He may want to make a point to say, I'm going to fight inflation. I'm steadfast on fighting inflation. And if that's the case, if he's steadfast on fighting inflation again, then he may make a rate. He may give a rate cut just to prove his points. If we look at Polymarket right now, no change has got a 75% odds. A 25 bips increase has a 24% chance. This is a free 1%. There's no way he's raising rates by 50 basis points. If you look at the CME forecasting tool, it says that no rate, 68% chance of no rate cut this time. And then the next meeting, there is actually a 57.1% chance of a rate cut. So quite a tumultuous time, quite a rough time on the market. A lot of people calling for the end of the AI trade, believe it or not, the end of the AI trade. I'll show you why they are calling for the end of the AI trade. The reason why they're calling for the end of the AI trade, and I want to read you this tweet from Amit is Investing. I think it's a very good tweet. He covers why this was the worst week in the market for semiconductors. I think I have a semiconductor chart for you somewhere. I think it's here. There we go. You can kind of see the semiconductors. You can see how they're starting to correct very at the beginning stage of the correction. So why did the market respond like this? Why was it the worst day for semiconductors all year? So the first thing is that there was a Chinese-backed company that started mass production of its own DUV lithography machines. The market is worried that and I'll talk to you about the deep ultraviolet lithography machines. We'll talk about that in a second. The market is worried that China has actually made a breakthrough which will reduce their dependency on US chip manufacturers. Then the market also reacted to NVIDIA backstopping an OpenAI data center with $250 billion. Guess why? Because just like the market was scared of before, let me try and find this graphic for you. There's a great graphic that I want to show you here. Here we go. So you had NVIDIA actually coming down quite a bit yesterday, and it's actually down another 1% today. Why? Because they are guaranteeing or backstopping an OpenAI data center. Now, the reason why the market doesn't like that is because they're kind of saying, look, you're guaranteeing $250 billion so that Sam Altman can buy chips from you to the value of $250 billion. So it's like that circular economy. And the market doesn't like this circular economy. And so the market punished NVIDIA yesterday. As I said, yesterday, NVIDIA was down, I think 6 or 7%. Today, down 1%. And the entire tech sector actually faltering. Let's go back to this Chinese state-backed manufacturer producing its own direct ultraviolet lithography machines. Now, the reason why I want to talk about that is because let's just understand what this is. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT, why are these deep ultraviolet lithography machines very important? And it said the following. So it said the following. It said, this is one of the most important technologies in the world. Okay, also why ASML became one of Europe's most valuable companies. Think of semiconductor manufacturing as building a city. The silicon wafer is the empty land. The transistors are the buildings, and the lithography is the machine that draws the blueprint of every road, building, and pipeline on that land. So when you look at a chip, you know, like that, like the little lines that basically happen. It says, here's what happens. A perfectly polished silicon wafer is coated with a light-sensitive chemical called photoresist. A lithography machine shines a light through the mask that contains the blueprint for a one-layer chip. The exposed photoresist changes chemically. The wafer is etched, leaving behind a microscopic transistor patterns. This process is repeated 50 to 100 times to build the modern processor. So up until now, China hasn't been able to do this, right? Or hasn't been able to do this en masse. The problem is that the US did something which they thought that they were doing something short term, but what they did was they actually forced China to start looking for a solution. So what did they do? They did what the US does very well. They limited the exports of the chips to China. So they called this the bipartisan legislation that it's introducing the multilateral alignment of technology controls on hardware. They call it the Match Act. It's a bipartisan legislation that modernizes US exports to ensure adversaries cannot buy choke point semiconductors. So by promoting harmonization of export controls among the allies and closing servicing and entity-specific loopholes, the Match Act preserves the US technological lead in the AI competition with China and eliminates the competitive edge disadvantage currently facing the US firm. So the US said, okay, in order to keep our advantage over China, what we'll do is we will limit the number of chips, semiconductors that can actually get to China. Problem is that China said, okay, well, if you're limiting the number of chips to actually get to China, what we're going to do is we're actually going to start a solution to build our own. And yesterday they made that breakthrough. Now, this is what I warned the US against doing. Why? Because the US's natural reaction is to limit the substance from getting to China, or to limit the export of a substance to China, because it thinks that it's weakening China. And in the short term, yes, maybe the Chinese people suffer, but in the long term, they force China to make a plan. You call this in economics, you say short term inelastic, long term elastic, right? So short term, the demand is inelastic and unfortunately China suffers. But you push them into a corner, and in that corner, what China does is basically lands up innovating. And that's exactly what they did. They for the first time, they have a company that can manufacture this direct ultraviolet lithography machines. Now, is this something that you need to be really scared of? The truth is that you don't really need to be scared of it, because direct ultraviolet is not the latest technology, right? There's one technology that's actually better than direct ultraviolet technology, and that technology is, can I increase these things? I can't. Let me try one more time to log into X. I don't think so. I think X is going to keep rate limiting us, but we'll try. We will do our best. Yeah, it's so frustrating. I've actually even reached out to Nikita at Twitter, or tagged him. And yeah, let me just quickly try and log in. Yeah, I'm not promising you that I can log in. Yeah, we don't know if we can log in. We're going to try, and we hope that Twitter doesn't rate limit us. Although I think they do. Let's try this again. Hold on a second. We're going to get in. We're going to do it by hook or by crook. Otherwise, you guys are going to help me by reaching out to Nikita as well and saying, you can't watch your favorite show because you just can't open tabs, and therefore you can't refer to information tweets. Let's quickly do this. Oh, man, come on. Okay, let me in. I'm in that. Okay, here we go. I'm in that tweet, which is great. So you can see that there are two types of technologies, right? The first type of technology is this what they call sorry. Let me get my bearings again. Let me just get all my tabs open again. So the first one is the deep ultraviolet technology, and then there's enhanced ultraviolet technology, which is actually the newer technology. They've only made a progress in deep ultraviolet technology, but the principle remains the same. And I think that this is a principle that the United States should follow, because now, as you know, the US is trying to force the same thing when it comes to the open source models. They're talking about banning the open source models, right? Let's see if we can get into this tab over here. Or is it? See, it just gives us the black screen, and then that's it. Now we're frozen. All right. So anyway, that is the problem. The other thing that happened yesterday was there was a Chinese-backed chip manufacturing company that launched and actually became the second biggest company in China. It got a $500 billion market cap. So all in all, what's scaring the markets here is that China is actually making progress in the AI race. It is providing cheaper alternatives than the US companies can provide. And all the costings have been done on the US companies with their expensive options, right? Now, all of a sudden, the China's coming in with their cheaper options, just like they did with cars. You know, initially we only had Tesla as the electric vehicle. And then China started with a whole lot of low-cost vehicles, and those low-cost vehicles are actually pretty cool. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen a BYD or a G-Tour. Look, it's not Tesla, but for the price that you pay a tenth of the price, or it depends which country, and you pay 20%, 30%, 40% of the price, and you're actually getting a really, really, really good car. Yes, it's not a Tesla. Let's call a spade here. Okay, it could get worse tomorrow morning when you wake up, and that is tomorrow morning when you wake up. The first chart that I want you to open is I want you to open the KOSPI. The KOSPI is the Korean stock index chart. Why? This chart is down 35%. In this market, 65% of the market is made up by SK Hynix and Samsung, two companies that are semiconductor and chip companies. Now, tomorrow, SK Hynix reports their earnings. What you'll notice about SK Hynix is that they are already down 50% from their all-time highs. They are 48% down from their all-time highs of 22 days ago, right? They are still up for the year. Just to give you perspective, let's start in January 2026. So that's January 2026. They're still up 114%. So don't get me wrong, like, you've still made a good return. But if you look at this chart, it's starting to come back into equilibrium. Tomorrow, SK Hynix is reporting results. If SK Hynix reports good results and a good outlook, so you're kind of looking at two things. The first thing is you're looking for good results relative to what we see over here. You can see that what the market is forecasting over here, that they're forecasting a 200. Let's look at quarters. Let's actually see if we can get this to quarters. Is there there was a quarterly one that we could look at. Let's see if we can find. That's fiscal year. We want quarterly. Where do we get quarterly? So anyway, we're expecting a big jump in revenue and in EBITDA. If they miss their expectations tomorrow, or they give bad forward guidance, this chart basically goes down. If this chart goes down, I fear that the KOSPI is at key level. So this is the one key level we already broke below. The next key level is around here, which is the 4,800 on the KOSPI. That we could see another circuit breaker day. Remember, today we had a circuit breaker day in Korea. We could get another one of those circuit breaker days in Korea. That we'll know tomorrow. So if we get, you'll wake up in the morning, you look at the KOSPI chart. If you see that the KOSPI bounced, you know SK Hynix actually gave us good results. If you see the KOSPI at another circuit breaker day, then we know that they did good results. Ask me where I think they're going to report good results. I think we're going to get a bit of a bounce in the KOSPI. I'm looking for an entry on the KOSPI. I'm kind of tempted to go in at 36% down from the highs. The problem is, every time I look at it, I kind of say to myself, it's cool, but the problem is that you are still buying into a market that is a stock market that is up 45% just this year. So I don't know. Can you do that? Can you buy a stock market that's up 45% and still think you're getting some of the value? I don't know. Maybe good to start DCAing here. Maybe good to start DCAing here. I don't know. If you want exposure to Korea, I'm starting to get exposure to Korea. Speaking of exposure to Korea, remember that Dylan is running his bootcamp. Let's put the Dylan bootcamp in here. If you want to learn how to trade, let me see if I can find that Dylan story. Researchers, can you just send me a link to Dylan story? If you want to learn how to trade stocks, Dow, Nasdaq, commodities on a centralized exchange using your crypto cash, and not having to withdraw money, put it into Robinhood, into a broker. Dylan has a bootcamp where in 3 days he'll teach you how to double your account. There is a link below. Use that link. Researchers, are you going to send me the ad so we can actually play the ad again? I want to try and log in here. Now you see, I'm completely barred from Twitter. I'm pretty much, look at this. Every time that I actually click on a tab, I just get a black window. The only thing I can do is I can log out. So I have to go here, and then I have to log out. Here, you see I have to log out. Here, bang. Log out. Sucks. And then I have to go back to the tab. It's ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Look here. I have to basically go out onto each tab and then refresh it. I wanted to play you guys another video of Trump around the FOMC, but I don't know if I can even play videos, because I think you have to log in to play videos. Can you believe it? Anyway, I'll try and fix it for you guys tomorrow. Paolo, I can't play it on Twitter because I'm logged out of Twitter, as you can see. I'm fighting with 𝗙𝗘𝗓. Anyway, I will be here tomorrow. We'll be watching FOMC together tomorrow here on the Banter channel. Is there anything else? The Clarity Act, there is a chance that the Clarity Act is going to get voted on next week. Again, there's another problem around Russia, so maybe not, but they are hopeful that it gets passed next week, actually. So let's wait for that. Also, okay, so I know a lot of you are in Europe, and a lot of you have been either locked out of your exchanges or don't have a crypto exchange. I want to give you 2 offers that you can use in Europe. First offer is, if you want a fully KYC'd exchange, you can go to OKX. There's a link below. Sign up on the link below, and you get an 8% deposit bonus, right? You can see that if you go to today's show, not yesterday's show, today's show. Here we go. Deposit bonus. You can go here. There's an 8% deposit bonus if you use that link over there when you open an account. You deposit $10,000, you get 8%, you get $800. $100,000, you get $8,000. If not, you can use a VPN, and you can sign up with Blowfin, and you can still basically trade on a non-KYC exchange using the VPN. So you buy the VPN, it costs you $3 a month, you protect your IP address, etc., etc. You need that if you're in crypto anyway. And then you sign up for Blowfin, and then you can trade on a non-KYC exchange. All right, look, I'm sorry for the technical issues today. I mean, it's Twitter, it's not us. I've tried my best. I've been struggling the whole afternoon to actually open any tweets. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Tomorrow, no show at this time, but we will do FOMC together. Cool, you got it? All right, cool. See you again tomorrow. Till then, trade well, my friends.